Black cats. In pop culture, a lot of times they are connected to witches and dark and black magic and even bad luck. So we wanted to know why.
And when we did the research and we were looking in on this, we found some interesting things. First of all, witches going all the way back to Salem witch trials and the medieval times when they were just, considered to be the doing the work of Satan. And that's where we believe the witch factor came in. All of a sudden, we took what, the medieval times made of witches and turned it into this like wearing big hats and using cauldrons, and everything was dark and black. And so now black cats are associated with them too. And witches, bad luck, means black cats, bad luck. At least that's kind of where we started. We learned a lot though.
Yes, we did. And we wanted to dive even further back than, the Salem witch trials, and really look at the medieval times and see if that's where it started. And Chloe, I know in your research, you came across a pope who made a statement who we think may have changed how black cats are perceived even still today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, all the way back to the year of 1233. It was Pope Gregory the 11th, and he basically came out with this statement saying that Satan could take the form of a black cat when he walked on earth. If you want to check below, you can find the link to the full story about that. But he was basically telling the world at that time that cats were Satan. And since cats had already been associated with a lot of different other folklore that we'll get to from further back, it was sort of perpetuating this idea that cats were evil. And thus, a lot of them were killed because of that statement.
And I went even further back into Greek mythology, which I think is pretty cool anyway. But even connected to Zeus and his wife Hera is a story about black cats. Apparently, one of their servants, I'm not going to pronounce this right, but Galantheus, played like a prank and actually tried to impede something that Hera was doing that involved the birth of Heracles. I'm a little foggy on the exact details, but obviously Hera wasn't very pleased with this servant, so she actually turned her into a black cat. And then later on, Galantheus, the black cat, actually went on to work with and become the assistant of Hecate, who is the goddess of witchcraft and even death. So even going back to Greek mythology, so before the medieval times, there's a connection of black cats to witchcraft and even death.
Mm-hmm. Even further back, and you had to define this for me because I didn't know what it was. There's Norse mythology, which is Scandinavian, so it's even further back than Greek mythology. And there's a goddess Freya there who rode a chariot, and it was pulled by what were considered magical cats, and she was in charge of death and afterlife. And so because of her having black cats pulling in the chariot, and I guess she was also known for like practicing witchcraft as part of her being in control of death. So right there already we're talking about cats and witchcraft being tied together. And this is, I don't even know how far ago that was, but it just seems like the roots of this probably go further back than we can actually put a date to.
Right. And I think it's because even in Celtic, so when you talk about Ireland and the UK and Scotland, there's connections there as well to witchcraft and cats. And so it's very interesting that it is so rooted in this ancient culture, but it isn't like this one thing that caused us to associate cats, specifically black cats, and witches.
And it went on because, we started telling you about Pope Gregory the 11th, but a century after that, after he made that claim, there was Pope Innocent the 7th. And he actually sentenced cats in his declaration that he made as a representation of evil. So he sort of reinforced it again, and that was a century later. So it's like it keeps coming up. And thus, there's all the history and myths just continue to be told. So here we are in, 2020, still talking about myths around black cats and that they're evil and cause bad luck. And it goes so, so far back.
Right. And even with pop culture, we were talking about Cinderella, that has a cat named Lucifer, and Lucifer is generally associated with Satan.
Yep.
So it's reinforced. And even, Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, whether you look at the older version or the newer version, there's tons of representations of black cats being connected to witches, death, mystery. And a lot of times they have a level of negativity on them.
Mhm.
Not always, though.
I think that's why there's still these ideas that black cats are bad luck, because just going so far back like we just did, there's just this root in it of, oh, they must be evil, they must be witches. For a long time, going back to the Salem witch trials, people believed if you saw a black cat, it was either a witch, like a witch reincarnated, or it was a witch's cat basically doing the witch's bidding around town. and
Right.
and so
A
if you
familiar, I think, is
right.
one of they're called.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's actually how this started. We were like, okay, so why is that? You see a black cat, why is it associated with witches? Why is it considered bad luck? Why is it, such a negative connotation put on black cats, who we think are quite beautiful? And I think
Yeah.
that it goes all the way back to that. It's just this perpetuated thing that has started centuries and centuries ago that finds its way into our lives. And I think in general, people kind of are superstitious. We have superstitions. And that one, for some reason, won't die.
Right. I'll be honest though, I love me some Halloween, so I do love that black cats are kind of associated with it because to me it's something that's positive. They're
Mhm.
mysterious, they're different, they're cool, but that isn't how a lot of people perceive them. However, when we were doing our research on bad luck, because that's what we grew up with, that's what we
Mhm.
associated with. When I grew up, it was like, don't let a black cat cross your path. We
Mhm.
found, though, that so many other cultures and societies actually view it a little bit different. And I think that's really cool.
It is really cool. I mean, all the way back to Egyptians now, which, like, Egyptian mythology and Greek mythology were probably close to the same era, but Egyptians held cats in very high esteem. They like worshipped them. If they had a cat in the house, it was considered good luck. They put jewels on them. They mummified them when they were passed on. If you were an Egyptian and you killed a cat accidentally or otherwise, you were sentenced to death. And they mourned so much that when a cat that they had died, they shaved their eyebrows and mourned until their eyebrows grew back. So they loved the cats. There was definitely almost like a worshiping and putting them up on a pedestal, which I believe is where cats belong.
Yes, and I feel like that whole Egyptians and cats is a whole nother video that we'll have to do
I know.
someday. But the
Yeah.
fact that simultaneously, while this Greek mythology and Norse mythology, and then eventually, the Pope was
Hmm.
saying negative things, Egyptians were actually putting them on high esteem.
Hmm.
And there's some other examples too. My husband's Scottish, and apparently in Scotland, if a black cat comes and hangs out on your driveway or your porch, that's good luck. So I'll take that. I love that one.
It's considered good luck, I believe, in Japan too. If you see a black cat, it's just like, oh, that's a lucky symbol. I think that there are several cases of that. There's plenty of places, if you go and find the research, that you can find where people are either worshiping or believe in good luck or honoring black cats. So it's two sides of the coin.
And we couldn't end this video talking about black cats without sharing some pictures of some beautiful black cats. So we reach out to some friends, some influencers who have black cats in their life, and here's a little slideshow of black cats and how great they are.
And to wrap up this video, we hope that you think about the myths that you hear, the superstitions that you have, and maybe help educate people on where they come from when it comes to black cats, because they're a wonderful companion. Plenty live in happy homes, and we definitely want to make sure no harm comes to any black cats during the month of October for Halloween and witches and superstition or anything like that, or otherwise, any time of the year. We want to promote how wonderful of a pet any cat and black cats definitely are.
And if you love learning about cats and other animals that you love, be sure to subscribe to our channel so that our latest videos show up in your inbox.